Hello everyone, I am Yuliana Acosta, and today we're going to be talking about the impact of parenting styles on the communication between the guardians and the child. So, how many of your parents know that you've done illegal things? Like, So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start asking a bunch of questions. You guys can feel free to raise your hands. I'm not going to raise my hand because I'm being filmed and this is going to go on a website, so I don't want, anyone knowing anything. But, so underage drinking. How many of your parents know that you drink underage or did drink? Okay. So how about smoking? How many of your parents know that you smoke? If you smoke. The little Juul, the little weed or whatever. Okay. How about clubs? If you're not 18 and you go into the club, do your parents know you do that? All right. So, how many of your parents have given you the talk? You know what I mean? All right. Good. That's good. So, on a lighter note, how many of your parents know what classes you're taking next semester, and if you've already chosen those classes?
What if I don't know what classes I'm taking?
Yeah, I don't know what classes I'm taking next semester. All right. So how many of your parents know your major? All right, that's really good. I'm proud. All right. So, it's clear that communication between children and parents shouldn't only be the first part of the questions, explicit things, illegal things, inappropriate things. Communication should be, whole. It should be that, but it should also be what you eat for lunch, how are your classes going, that type of stuff. So I'm going to give some examples, and I'm going to use myself as, the little guinea pig or whatever. So I call my mom twice a day. And if I call her in the morning, I'll tell her what I'm eating for breakfast, what my classes are, whatever. If I call her in the afternoon or at night, I tell her how my day went, if I had any issues with my teachers. And maybe you guys do that too. But to be honest, not every child has that type of relationship with their parents. And not only does it impact their communication, but it can also impact the outcome of the child when they turn into an adult. So, yeah. That was like if they know your major, but all right. So, some of the things that I talk about that are the most important to my parents that they're always asking me about are my grades, my schoolwork, if I have plans for the weekend. So yes, they do know if I go out and what I'm doing and stuff like that. Maybe if I'm having trouble with my boyfriend or with my friends, they ask me and I'll answer because it's just part of the communication. You have to be comfortable enough to talk to them like if they were your friend, but obviously with more respect. So, my point is that not every parent is involved with their child's education, with their friends, with their, anything, like what you're going to do on the weekend. So, it's really important that this presentation you guys take out of it that, yes, maybe you guys are privileged enough to have that type of relationship with your parents, but if you're not and you know that there's an issue with it, you guys should kind of reach out and be like, hey, why don't you ask me some more? Or you open up and be like, hey, Mom, this is what I'm doing this weekend, these are my plans, whatever, because you guys should start building up that kind of relationship. It's never too late, really, you should have that connection with your parents. So I'm going to give an example that really shocked me, and it was recent. So, my boyfriend's friend was over at my boyfriend's apartment, and he gets a call from his mom, and his mom is asking him, oh, so how do you like Santa Fe? How are your classes going? What classes are you taking? Did you finally pick your major? And this was recent. This wasn't even a month ago. And so I asked him when he hung up the phone, I was like, oh, who were you talking to? That's so nice that they're asking you. He goes, oh, my mom. I was like, oh, your mom didn't know what your major was? Your mom didn't know what classes you were taking? He goes, no, I don't really talk to her. I mean, she dropped me off August for college, and I kind of text her. I send her pictures sometimes if I'm eating something cool. I was shocked that he didn't have good communication with his parents, and his mom didn't even know about his schedule or anything like that. So I didn't want to be intrusive. I mean, I don't know what his situation, circumstances are, so I was like, oh, okay, and I just kind of changed the conversation. I didn't want to be rude about it, but I kind of thought, wow, like, I personally wouldn't like that. So let's talk about some possibilities of why kids don't reach out to their parents as much. Okay, you can keep going. So, you can keep going too. And keep going. Alright, so let's see some possibilities of why parents perhaps don't reach out to their kids, or why kids don't reach out to their parents to talk to them. So I want to talk about the parenting styles first, so you guys have an overview of what they are and how they can impact a child. And then at the end, I'm going to pull up some of my own research that I did, and then feel free to ask questions or give some feedback, share any personal experiences. I'd love to learn more. So, some kids don't tell their parents things. Primary reason, because they feel that they're going to be embarrassed. So kids are scared to be like, hey mom, how do you put on a condom? Like it's kind of awkward, you know. It is. Let's not fake it. There's the giant elephant in the room. Your parents are gonna be like, oh why? Do you really need to know how to do that right now? You know. So kids are kind of like terrified of that. You're scared that your parents are just gonna assume that the kid's already gonna have sex. Another reason is because kids are afraid that their parents are gonna misinform them. So the reason I say this is because I'm Hispanic. And there are a lot of families that I know that their parents only speak Spanish. You know, they don't speak English. They're not familiar with the Google. They're very old school. Everything is like from back in the days. And the kids are like, I'm not going to ask my mom what a vibrator is because she might not even know what it is. So it's things like that that kids fear. But you shouldn't fear. You should go ahead and ask them. And if they don't know, then be like, okay, let's do some research. I mean, kid in my class was talking about it and I really want to be informed. So, the parenting styles. We're going to start off by talking about the parent who's always mad. The parent where you ask him or her a question and they automatically say, you're grounded, that's inappropriate, that's not okay. So, the authoritarian parenting style is about being strict and stern. It insists on unquestioning obedience and enforces good behavior through threats, shaming, and other punishments. Now, some parents think, yeah, that's fine, that's going to be great. They're going to do whatever I'm telling them at the moment. But that doesn't really work in the long term, and we're going to find out why. So, one very important thing is identifying the parents, because just because a parent does that once doesn't mean that that is their style of parenting, but there has been a trend found with these types of authoritarian parents. So, as defined by psychologists, it's also a style associated with less parental warmth and responsiveness. Parents are not open to listening to the other side of the story, so the child's point of view. And their staple is because I said so. So if your parents are always telling you because I said so, and not giving you an explanation, and if you ask them why, other than because you said so, and they get really pissed, this is a red flag because this could potentially be your parent. I'm not just saying anything, but this could potentially be your parent. So, let's investigate if this actually even works. So if authoritarian parents are demanding, does that at least suggest that they will produce kids that are better off behaved or more successful in the classroom, you know, things like that that you would think, okay, your parents are really strict, you're gonna be a superstar. Actually, no, that's not what happens. So in a recent meta-analysis of more than 1,400 published studies, Martin Pincourt found that harsh control and psychological control were actually the biggest predictors of worsening behavioral problems over time. So if you're constantly telling your kid, I'm gonna slap you in the face if you don't like take out the trash, you're mentally and emotionally harming your kid because your kid's like, wow, I'm not taking out the trash, I'm gonna get slapped in the face, my parent must hate me. So another thing that is happening with these types of parents is that they're super strict, but guess what? The kids are gonna do what they wanna do anyways. So it turns out that parents who are very controlling, their kids are gonna go ahead and sneak behind their back. So kids are gonna do these things anyways. So you're not letting your kid drink and you're very strict and it's like, oh, if I catch you drinking, I'm gonna smash the bottle on your head, or like you're gonna be grounded and taking away your car. Your kid's gonna do it. And maybe your parent won't find out, maybe you're really good at hiding it and keeping it a secret, but that can eventually lead to problems because you feel the rush, you're a rebel, and you're gonna be like, yeah, I got away with it, I'm gonna keep doing it again, and then that is why research shows that most parents who are very, very strict, their kids end up being alcoholics, end up being like permanent potheads, because what your parent constantly tells you no to, kids are always gonna wanna rebel. And on top of that, they're not even being honest with their parents about it. At least if you're honest, your parent can give you tips and hints like, oh, don't mix this with that because you're gonna get like super wasted. No, the kid doesn't know. He's not gonna Google what mixes, get you super messed up. Like, no. So let's look at more studies. I found this to be really interesting because it wasn't just America. We have other countries really, and continents and stuff, really all going for this effort of researching parental styles and their effects on the kid on communication. So South America and Spain, researchers in Latin countries report that authoritarian parents are more likely to have kids with low social competence. So another point that I want to make is that high school students with authoritarian parents were more likely to be involved in bullying. So they're likely to be the bully, because if your mom is, demonstrating that it's okay to be aggressive towards someone, then you think, yeah, it's fine to be aggressive towards someone. So when the kid doesn't let me use his eraser, I'm gonna whack him in the head with a book. Like, no, that's not okay. So since parents lead by example, kids are like, okay, it's fine for my parent to be a bully to me, so why wouldn't I be a bully to someone else? So what do the children see? Children see that there's never room for negotiation in these type of relationships, because it's not like I can be, Mom, 10:30, not 10. No, it has to be 10. There's no room for, okay, 5 minutes, okay, a little bit more, no, it's always a no. So kids are like, there's no point in talking to my parent because they're not gonna listen anyways. It has to be what they want. So this breaks down and they just don't want to communicate with their parents. It's always an issue, it's always a struggle. So again, they fear punishment, like I said before. They're worried that their parents are gonna go ahead and get upset and do something drastic, and they don't feel friendliness from their parents. That parent, that mom or that dad is not that shoulder to cry on. It's like if you tell them why you're crying, they're gonna get mad at you because you did something wrong. So this is an overall view of the results, the punishments, the style of parenting, and I thought that this was really useful because it kind of like clarifies everything. So we see that they're restrictive and controlling, there's barely any verbal exchange, and it's just punishment. A lot of punishment if things are done wrong. So the other type of parent that we're going to talk about is if they always let you do what you want. And I feel like we all have seen a movie where the parent's like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want. But these parents actually exist in real life, and it's frightening. And I'm going to tell you guys a story, and you guys are going to freak out. Like, this is like illegal. So permissive parenting is a style of child rearing that features two key traits. Being nurturing and warm, which is good for kids, and being reluctant to impose limits, which is not good for kids. So, just because your parents like, okay, yeah, this week you can go to the mall all the times you want, that doesn't mean that they're, easygoing. It could just be like they're in a good mood and they want you to go to the mall this week. But if they're always letting you do whatever you want, they're getting in trouble and they're covering up the fact that you're doing wrong things, this is the red flag for this parent. So how to identify them? How to identify these type of parents? There's no discipline, so they've never told you, if you do this, you're getting in trouble. So there's no rules laid down. They're not demanding, so you have no responsibilities. You don't have to call them. They don't really care where you are. They don't assign, any chores or anything like that to make sure that their child understands that you need to eventually start acting like an adult at one point in your life. So, does this damage kids threaten to destroy civilization? This was a question from this site, parentingscience.com, and I thought it was really funny because it threatened to destroy civilization. Okay. So, what do the experts say? Permissive parenting styles don't present themselves as authority figures or role models. They might use a reason for manipulation, like at some point they might be like, if you do this, I'll give you a candy. but to be able to get what they want, but they avoid exercising over power. So I'm gonna tell you guys a story. I'm not mentioning names because it's gonna be really bad because I'm on camera, but I am friends, not intimate friends, but you know, my boyfriend's friend and my sister's friend. Super weird, they go to the same school, but these kids, these 3 boys, their parents were together for a while, but it just so happens that the youngest son, which is friends with my sister, found the family iPad and started playing around with it. And he saw that it was connected to his dad's iCloud account. And he clicked messages. And he realized that his dad was having an affair with his mom through like text messages and stuff, and they had actually been going out, and there was pictures, and the little kid freaked out. So naturally, I'm assuming he didn't like think this through or like ask for advice, but he went to his mom, he gave her the iPad and was like, here, look through everything. The mom filed for divorce and they got divorced, and all the kids were on her side, you get me, like, Dad, how could you do this? So she felt that her kids were turning into her best friends. So they're like, okay, you guys are awesome, you're on my team. She divorces the guy, and she ends up wanting to be this cool, hip teenage mom. She starts letting the boys throw parties at this nice house that she bought with all the divorce money that she got. Very nice house, I've been to it. So she let her youngest kid have this party. He invites like 100 people. And a video leaked that she was twerking on this 10th grader, and she was wearing very tight jeans and a crop top. Her stomach was all out, and when she went like this with her arms, the sleeves spelled a very inappropriate word in Spanish. And the video was, she was like going at it, she was like, hey! And she was super drunk, and she let all the kids drink, and I'm like, oh my God. She knows the video's out, but she doesn't care. I'm like, how could this be real? I thought this was a movie parent, but it's not, it's real, and I just freaked out. I was like, get away from her and her sons. I told that to my sister and my boyfriend too, just in case. But yeah, just in case, you never know. So I was really shocked to learn about this because those kids don't have responsibilities. If your parent is letting you throw this giant party at your house and like your parent is like making out and like branding all your friends, that's really weird. That's like creepy. Like I do not, those are boundaries that should never be crossed, just saying. So research findings from this type of parent. So studies have found that links between permissive parents and increased alcohol use among teenagers, just like what I said, you know, she's letting her kids throw these parties, they're all getting drunk, like whatever. Permissive parenting has been linked with higher childhood BMIs, which is like your body weight and like your mass, because my reasoning for this is that you're not going to tell your little kid that candy's bad for you and stop eating those donuts and your pizzas. So since the parent's not going to stop the kid, you know, why not eat all the Oreos in the box? Like, I don't know. And also a study of British 10 to 11-year-olds reports that there's a link between permissiveness and excessive television use, which, you know, your kid should be doing homework, but they're watching TV. So these are things that permissive parents actually confess to, and I found it really funny because these parents know that they're permissive parents, but they don't really do anything about it, and they just confess to these things, which like I would be super embarrassed about, but whatever. So they ignore their child's bad behavior. They give in to their child when he or she causes a commotion about something, and they bribe their child with rewards to get them to comply with their wishes, because they have no other way of being able to do this. They're not the authority figure. They can't be like, do your homework. No, your kid's not going to listen. So they have to be like, if you do your homework, I'll give you $5 for gum. Like, okay, no. So, yes. And these type of parents that I just talked about are called the indulgent parent. So that's like a fun fact. They can be used interchangeably. So children feel low levels of rich communication with their parents because their parents don't really care. They say, yeah, go ahead. They don't ask who you're with, what you're doing, what time you'll be back home. They don't really care. Parents do not communicate with the standards, like they don't communicate their standards or any rules. So kids don't really see that as a relationship. It's just like you're my Uber driver that's going to take me to the party. And parents are highly involved but act more like friends. So exactly, they take their kids to a movie or a party. So this is also a little chart, which I think was awesome, but we can skip that. So the next type of parent is the ones that are never home and the ones that ignore you. Surprisingly, I didn't know this, but there's a bunch of people who unfortunately have these type of parents, and they don't answer their phone, they are never home, kids don't even know where their parents are, and it's really sad, but they do exist. So uninvolved parents are like permissive parents that they fail to enforce standards, but unlike permissive parents, they are uninvolved, and they're not nurturing, and they're not warm. They basically provide their kids with food and shelter, but that's it. So these uninvolved parents, they offer little emotional support for their kid because they're just not involved. They're never there. They don't know anything. They don't know who your teachers are, who your friends are. They just don't care. And most of the time there's a reason for that. Most of the time either the parent is too caught up in their own life, is very stressed. Maybe their parents were like that to them, and it's a continuing cycle. So the experts say that kids from uninvolved families are the worst in all respects, which is really sad. Most juvenile offenders have been identified to have parents who were uninvolved. So studies have shown that children of neglectful parenting grow up to be social recluses. They do not do well in school, fall victims to bullying and substance abuse, and are more susceptible to mental ailments like depression when they grow up. So neglectful parents do more harm to the child's growth than even abusive parents. So that was shocking to read. So the research findings. This was probably the saddest thing out of all the research that I did, because it made me sad to think that there's actually people who have these kinds of parents, and it's not their fault that they turn out like this, it's just the parents' fault, and the parents might not even be realizing this. So due to lack of emotional responsiveness and love from their caretakers, children raised by uninvolved parents may have difficulty forming attachments later on in life. The complete lack of boundaries in the home makes it difficult to learn appropriate behaviors and limits in school and other social situations, which is why children with uninvolved parents are more likely to misbehave. In some cases, parents may be so wrapped up in their own problems, like being overworked, coping with depression, struggling with substance abuse, that they actually fail to see how uninvolved they are with their child, or simply they're unable to provide the emotional support. So when you see that kid that's screaming and throwing a tantrum, I mean, yeah, you're going to be like, oh my god, this kid's so annoying. But you don't know if the kid's annoying because he just doesn't know the limits. Because you don't know if he's throwing a tantrum because he's in his terrible twos, or because his parents were just never involved and never taught him how to behave, or her, how to behave. So there's definitely no communication between, little or no, between these parents and their kids. Phones never answered. They just don't care. The parents just are absolutely zero involved. And that's another chart for this type. So children of authoritarian parents are often socially incompetent, lack of self-control, low self-esteem, and immature. Why does it say authoritarian parents? I don't know. Forget that. So next. What is the ideal parenting style? So the next parenting style we're going to talk about, I'm sure that a lot of you guys have heard, because if you've taken psychology, or even in this class, I think we talked about it like 1 or 2 times, it's the authoritative style. So not to be confused with authoritarian. Authoritarian is like the dictator type. Authoritative is like a mix of all of them, which is a nice word, mix to say, because it basically is. So authoritative parents take a different and more modern approach that emphasizes high standards, being nurturing and responsive, and showing respect for their children as an independent, rational being, which is my favorite thing. Because even if they're little and they're kids, I mean, they're independent and they're rational beings. Like, you can't expect your kid, yeah, he's 2, he doesn't know anything. Well, eventually he needs to learn to know something, so why wouldn't you just teach it to your kid? So authoritative parents expect maturity and cooperation and offer children lots of emotional support. This combination distinguishes the authoritative parenting style from both authoritarianism and permissiveness. So like I said, it was a mix. So like authoritarian parents, these type of parents enforce rules, but they have reason for those rules. So it's not like, you need to take out the trash because I said so. No, it's like, you need to take out the trash because your room is going to smell terrible if you have banana peels rotting in that trash can. That type of thing. So if you ask your parents, why did you set this rule, and they give you an explanation, this is most likely to be the type of parenting style that your parent has. So the experts say that yes, that this does work. And some of the things that were asked by parents who were authoritative is that they were asked a bunch of questions and their responses had these trends in it. So I take my child's wishes and feelings into consideration before I ask him or her to do something. I encourage my child to talk about his or her feelings. I try to help when my child is scared or upset. I provide my child with reasonable and with reasons for expectations that I have for him or her. I respect my child's opinion and I encourage him or her to express them, even if they're different from my own. So this last one, I saved the best for last. If your parents only encourage you to speak about what they like or what they approve, then they're not really getting the full you. Because let's say that my favorite color is red, but my parents both like blue. If I say I like red at the dinner table, they're gonna get upset with me? No, I should be able to say my favorite color is red, and they should be like, good for you, I'm glad that you are different from us. That's what the world is. Everyone's unique and everyone has different opinions and feelings towards things. So if your parents can't accept the fact that you might like something different than they do, then you're not having, that good communication, and you should be like, but I still love you, but I'm still your kid, I just think differently than you. So this works because the parent is still warm, so they still love their kid, they still nurse, they spend time with them, they go to the movies or whatever, but they have actual rich communication, so that's a plus, and I strive to be this one day. So, research findings. In a study of American students, undergraduates were presented with a series of moral problems and asked how they would solve them. Students from authoritative families were more likely than others to say that their parents, not their peers, would influence their decision most. So when you build that great relationship with your parents, you can go to them for advice and you trust them. So you know if your parents giving you good advice, you can be like, hey mom, this is an issue, what do you think about it? And you'll take that into account. You're not going to go ask your best friend who doesn't know anything about the world yet, just like you're clueless, and then they're like, yeah, this thing, you just go with it. No, these people actually look up to good role models, and it's good that they have good role models. I'm happy for them. So nevertheless, there is remarkable agreement across studies, from Argentina to China, from the United States to Pakistan. The authoritative parenting style is consistently associated with the superior outcomes of human beings. So children see this, as I said before, as a good support system. They can talk to them about anything, they have their questions answered, there's reasonable rules, and if you have this type of parent that has this parenting style, you know that even if you're annoyed with some of the rules they give you because you might think they're stupid, you know still deep down inside that maybe they're doing it to look out for you. They want you to be careful. You know that this maybe really annoying rule compensates for all their niceness on the other side, So it's kind of like a balance. So children have support systems at home. Although views may conflict, there's still respect and maturity. So I really appreciate the word respect in this study, because I feel like some parents maybe look down on their kids. It's like, oh, you're a little kid, like, what do you know? And that's not how it is at all. If you want your kid to respect you, then you should be able to respect your kid too. And this is the little chart. Is that it? All right, yeah, so these are some of the, wait, can you scroll a little down? It kind of like chopped off. Yeah. Okay, so some of the issues that we have here from the different kinds of parenting are seen. There could be self-image issues, there could be emotional issues, social issues, and even academic issues. So the way that you choose to parent your kid is really going to reflect on your kid as a whole. It's not just like they won't talk to people at school, they're going to be that awkward person in the corner. No, it could be a bunch of things. They're grades. Like, you never know. So this is the research I did. So I went ahead and I created a survey. I don't know if it's going to log in through the computer. Yeah, check and see. If not, I brought my laptop so I can see through there. Log in. Does it say no?
You just log in.
Yeah, I can log in. Can I pause this?
Is this reading?
Can I pause?
You just tell
You
us.
just said bias.
Right, the research part.
Oh, yeah, but it was like a bunch of charts and stuff. that I had.
We got a lot of this. You're already almost at 30 minutes, so.
Oh, okay, so we're
You probably
done.
just wrap it up. No, conclude.
Okay, yeah, so the things that I was able to, yeah, you can just exit. So I was able to find that people who answered, because this website lets me see the individual responses of people. So I could see that, like, if you put your name, I could see all of your choices. And people who constantly chose that their parents were, let's say, authoritarian, the rest of the answers tied in with that, because it's like your parents wouldn't give you a reason why they are giving you this rule, or no, I don't have good communication with my parents. So I took screenshots, but I won't be able to show them, of these trends, and I found it really interesting because for authoritative parenting style, it was the best results. It's like that parent that you wish you really had. So they had better communication. There was one question that said, does your parent allow you to express yourself, even if it's like the total, especially like in politics, even if it's like the total opposite of what they believe? And that's good. And people left comments, which I won't show, but it was really nice of them to participate. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so if there's any questions.